We are getting ready to secure this down. Keep in mind that we're sewing on top. This is right side up when we're sewing, but when we put the lid on, it's going to be upside down on the basket because we're putting sides on here. What I suggest is run some stitches on some fabric to make sure your stitches are all right, because if anything gets bundled up, any threads get bundled up on the back side, now you're going to see them because this is really the top of the lid. And my stitches look good. My tension looks good. Okay, so now it's time to measure our basket to know how large we're going to need to make the lid. So the objective here is to have a complete row of rope circling the outside of the basket. You want to see the edge of a complete row of rope. I recommend using a ruler. Now, laying the ruler on top of my basket, I am right at 19, even a little bit over 19. That's the measurement of my basket. Now, for the lid, we need the lid to be going around the outside of the basket. We don't want to make it the same size as this because it won't fit down over the sides. And those sides are going to add another layer of rope around here. We need the lid to fit on the outside of the basket. I'll give you a visual here. Imagine this is the rim of the lid. The lid is going to come to the outside of the basket. And as you can see, if this was the lid fitting on here, we need to extend the base of our lid so that it doesn't get in the way, so it has enough room to slide on top. So on your measurement of your basket diameter, we need to add in the amount of the base of the lid. So if I would make my base of my lid at 19, it wouldn't fit. It would be too tight. Now the rope, when we sew on it, it gets compressed and it makes it a little bit thinner. And we can see that here. This is measuring about 1/2 centimeter, whereas the rope, before it goes under the presser foot of the machine, it's 6 millimeters, but it gets squished in. So I would say that we could say adding an extra centimeter to our original measurement, and mine is say 19.3, I would want to make my base to be a 20.3 to make sure the lid is going to be able to sit on top of the basket. So do your calculations, measure your basket, and then add the extra measurement so that the lid is going to be large enough to fit over the rim of your basket. And on mine, it shows that it should be 20, maybe a pinch more. I don't want to go under 20, so if making your rounds, you're a little bit under the measurement, go higher. So take your measurements and make the base of your lid, and then you'll pull it out of your machine and we'll continue on. How did your base turn out? Was it difficult for you to sew this down? I'm sure by now you are probably getting much more experience, and it was great that you learned that new technique. You want to see the edge of a complete row of rope. Once you see that, then you're able to go back to your machine and start to build the sides. So let's move forward with that. I think I'm going to go about 3 rows. I will pull it out and I'll fit it on and see how I like it. That's just a method that I use to make sure that I really have what the design I like before I cut off the rope. All right, so I'm going to start off by going into where I left off. I have my mark there. I want to pierce the needle with that, which is my mark is on the right hand side of the zigzag. And I'm going to leave my foot up right now until I get right in that red mark. I'll lower my foot and I'll back stitch a little bit. Sorry about my hand getting in the way here. I just wanted to give you a good angle. These are from where I put the piece back in the machine. I'm coming around to my pin now, and that's when we're going to bend this up and build the sides. I also want to mention that I took off my extension table. For those of you who don't have an extension table, can see that you can sew these without one, but you can see that this is now over the edge and it can dip down a bit. So that's why the extension table is handy. All right, I'm getting close to my pin. And I'm at the pin. Now what we're going to do, I move my needle to be ending on the right. What we're going to do is just bend this up just a little bit. We're just going to give it a little help because I know that I'm right on the rim of my basket now. And in fact, we can do one more removal out of the machine just to make sure. And my lid, it doesn't fit because of this distance. So if you really want to be accurate, you can run another test. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to set my basket on there. And now you can see the row. That's why I want to bend this down. This is how the lid is going to sit. And I want to make sure that now it's overhanging and I want it to get right into the straight sides. That's why we bent it down. So before I put this back into the machine, you'll need to tie off your ends, mark where your point is to begin again. I'm ready to begin. So what we're going to do is elevate and remember to lift up on your rope. That's what's making the straight sides. So make sure you do that and do all the rounds until you get to the height that you want. Elevate and pull up on your rope. Moment of truth. So I built up my sides, the 4 rows that I decided to do. And now this is really, this was the top of the base. As we were sewing, making the base, we were looking at this. But now that we added sides, the bottom turns to be the top of the lid. And it fits. If I would have gone smaller, it would have been difficult to put it on and take it off, and we'd be pushing on the centerpiece of this. So this is easy to get off, easy to put back on without pressing down. When the lid is too tight, what happens is you're pressing down in the center of the basket, and that's going to get distorted over time. So now that we have that ready, curious, how did yours turn out? Please let us know in the group how you're doing. And what we need to do now is we can end the side of the basket, and we can clean it up. I use a little brush here. I take tweezers and pull out any loose threads that there might be. When you rip out stitches, you will have loose threads, and you'll need to remove those once your project is finished. So that looks great. And moving along, what's left to do now is end this. Put your tacking that you want to put. You can tack it, or you can just put simple zigzag on the edge there. We're going to add a tab. We're going to add a tab on this one. And then we will also be putting this pull on the top of the basket. So clean this up, cut it off and secure it, and we will continue on to add this to the top of the basket. You already know how to do tabs, so you can go ahead and move forward with that, and then I will show you how to put on the pull.